Is Obama in charge?
Mr. Reagan.
Right, so for a long time now, people have been trying to speculate who's in charge in Washington, D.C. Now, I did a whole video on my speculation about the power of the FBI, how much power they have in Washington, how much power the other intelligence agencies have. That's a very important video. I think everybody should watch that, and I think everything I said in that video is true. We know the NSA has been spying on Tucker Carlson. In that same video, I discussed what is the deep state. The deep state is just a bunch of different people with their own motivations and intentions, most of which are incredibly selfish or self-serving. And these people are willing to undermine or circumvent the democratic process that we use in America to decide who leads us, to decide what our laws are going to be, how we're governed. They want to strip the power from the people, and they want to take power themselves, and they want to run things really without the inconvenience of having regular people like you and me vote and decide on what should be happening to our country. Now, this includes people on Wall Street, this includes billionaires, this includes politicians, and of course it includes people in the FBI, the CIA, the other intelligence services. Now, for a long time, I have been hesitant to accept this idea that Obama is running everything behind the scenes. This is something that's been proposed by a lot of different people. In fact, people write it in my comments all the time as if it's common knowledge. Well, it isn't actually common knowledge. I've not really heard anybody present to me a good explanation of why they think Obama's in charge. This seems to be an impulsive conclusion that people draw because Obama's a big name. He was president, Biden was his vice president. It seems maybe logical that possibly Obama would still be in charge to some degree or another. People think Obama's evil. People think Obama is power hungry, stuff like this, right? There was, of course, this interview in which Obama jokingly stated that he wouldn't mind being president again, just so long as he didn't have to do all the formal ceremonial stuff. He could just manipulate things from behind the scenes.
People would ask me, knowing what you know now, do you wish like you had a third term? And I used to say, you know what, if I could make an arrangement where I had a stand-in, a front man or front woman, and they had an earpiece in, and I was just in my basement in my sweats, looking through the stuff, and then I could sort of deliver the lines, but somebody else was doing all the talking and ceremony. Wow. I'd be fine with that.
A lot of people looked at that and they said, aha. So Obama does plan on manipulating the federal government from behind the scenes, an unelected president. Obama's going to try to do his third term. I didn't think that was a particularly convincing interview. Maybe that's what he meant secretly, or maybe that was just an offhanded joke. It's hard to say. I didn't think that was convincing. But a lot of people did. There is more convincing evidence that Obama is working behind the scenes. For instance, he has a house in Washington, D.C. This is very unusual for a former president. Most of the time, former presidents leave D.C. I talked about this in my previous video. But there's really three reasons why I didn't think super likely that Obama was controlling things behind the scenes. The first reason is that Obama really isn't a great leader. Obama didn't accomplish that much while he was president. Sure, he did the Obamacare thing, but he's just a bit incompetent. He's not the kind of person that you would say, okay, this guy's a genius, he's going to run things from behind the scenes, we're all going to put all our trust in him. He's just not like the super genius, super villain that you would imagine behind the scenes making things happen. The second reason I was doubtful of this idea is that there are a lot of people in power currently, if you believe that the FBI blackmails people or tries to leverage people, which of course we know they do, then you realize the FBI has a lot of power. If you think that Pelosi does the same thing, if you think Pelosi has a lot of leverage over people in Washington, D.C., you think, okay, well, she's got a lot of power. In these cases where different parties have a lot of power, why would they give it up? Why would they ever give that power up to somebody like Barack Obama, who doesn't naturally have any power anymore? He's not in a position of authority in any official capacity. Maybe he has some dirt on some people, but it doesn't look to me like Obama is in a very good position to leverage anyone. So any power that he might have has to be granted to him by the other people in Washington, D.C. who have power already. And why would they do that? That didn't make any sense to me. And the third reason I was hesitant to believe it is because what is his motivation? what's Barack Obama's motivation, right? He became the president. He's got his legacy already established. The history books are going to probably treat him pretty kindly since, he's a Democrat and people who write history books are usually Democrats. He became a millionaire in office, right? He became rich in office. Now he can make as much money he wants on books. He can make as much money as he wants doing speeches, giving talks to various companies or whoever it is that he wants to speak to. He can command amazing speaking fees. So Barack Obama is good. Like, to me, there's no real, what's the benefit to him working behind the scenes to try to make things happen? That doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. But everybody seems to think that Barack Obama is running things behind the scenes. Everybody. A lot of you guys have written comments, under my videos like Obama's really in charge. Now, again, I don't think that there's really any good evidence to support that. Again, I think for most people, I think it's just a gut feeling. That's what they believe. That's their instinct. They think Obama is power hungry. He's evil. Of course he's doing it. But I need to see evidence. So I've been thinking about this for quite a long time, and I have come to a conclusion. I've actually made a decision. And so the question is, have I reversed my position? Do I still think that it's unlikely that Obama's running things, or have I switched? Have I turned to the side of everybody else who keeps saying that Obama's in charge? What's the answer? Well, we'll find out in one moment. First, of course, I have to sell you something. Apple recently released a long-awaited privacy feature that prevents you from being tracked across websites. Facebook relies on tracking more than any other business, so it's not surprising that they're trying to change this. Apple users now have the ability to choose whether or not they want to be tracked. Opting out will prevent their data from being used for ultra-targeted ads. Now, while this is a step in the right direction, this new feature won't completely protect you online. To do that, you're going to need a VPN. And this is why I highly recommend Virtual Shield. Right now, Virtual Shield is offering 50% off for life to my subscribers this month. I keep Virtual Shield turned on the entire time, both on my computer and on my phone. With the kinds of videos I make, I definitely need it. I never know who might decide tomorrow that I'm a target. Now, Virtual Shield is the quickest and easiest way to make yourself anonymous online. All it takes is a push of a button. Once it's on, my browsing data is hidden from my internet service provider, corporations, and hackers. Try Virtual Shield risk-free with a 30-day money-back guarantee by visiting virtualshield.com/Mr. Reagan. That's virtualshield.com/Mr. Reagan and get 50% off for life by signing up this month. All right, so what is my revelation? What have I decided? Well, I'm going to give it to you straight. I've changed. I agree with you now. I think Barack Obama is in charge. The primary reason why I changed my mind was a conversation I had with a former FBI agent, Mark Vines, from the Mark Vines podcast. If you don't listen to that, you should check it out. I've been talking to him quite a bit lately, and I did ask him what he thinks about this idea that Barack Obama's in charge. And he presented to me a couple of points that I hadn't considered. The first point that he made was that these Democrats who figured out a way to get Biden in office. Now, however it is you think they did that is irrelevant. The point is that Joe Biden now lives in the White House, and the Democrats are controlling things in Washington, D.C. But Mark's perception of this is that these people are a lot less confident than they pretend to be. His idea is that, in fact, they have very low confidence in their ability to maintain power. These guys just were barely able to figure out a way to scrape into the White House, to scrape into power, to really just slide it, to just figure it out, right? Their little sneaky tricks were able to get them into power, but they know that the American people are suspicious of them. They know that people are onto them, and like every criminal, they're always paranoid, right? Like every sneaky, malicious person, they're just like, oh, I'm gonna get caught, I'm gonna get caught. They're all paranoid they're going to get caught. So they really believe that they only have 4 years to get done everything that they need to get done to push this leftist agenda, all the things they want to do, right? Most of this stuff is selfish. You got to understand, the Democrats are not like us. I think conservatives think of the Democrats like the Republicans, right? The Republicans, generally speaking, I mean, okay, you have some different factions of the Republican Party, like you have the libertarians, you have atheist conservatives, but the primary base of the Republican Party is conservative, traditional patriots who believe in God, Christians, and our entire political philosophy is based around the traditional values of European Christianity. You don't have that same kind of fundamental base of ethics and values in the Democrat Party. What you have is a bunch of individual interests, right? You have special interests like environmentalists, LGBT folks, Black Lives Matter, you have groups like that. But you also have more professional organizations like the teachers' unions, and then you have companies, you have Wall Street, you have all these like billionaire donors and these other people that are involved. And then you have the individuals like Nancy Pelosi who just wants to get rich and she wants to remain in power. She wants to just steal money from the American people. She wants to take money from Wall Street if she can with her insider trading, which I talked about in a previous video. So you have all these individuals, you have all these little groups, right? And that's really what the deep state is. The deep state is all these people who have a bit of power in Washington, D.C. They're not necessarily elected, but they're willing to go against the American people. They're willing to do whatever they can to improve their own lives, to get rich, or to have power, or to get whatever they want out of it. And that's the Democrat Party, right? The Democrat Party and the deep state are essentially the same thing. They're kind of made up of the same kinds of people doing sneaky, shady stuff. And like I said, sneaky, shady people are always paranoid. So they're concerned they only got 4 years. And you saw this when Biden was first elected, right? When Biden was first elected, they shoved all these executive orders in front of him. And you just sign, I don't know what this is, but I'm signing it. Whatever you guys tell me to sign, I'm signing. Okay, so he signed all these executive orders immediately because they know they don't have that much time. They got to work their butts off to get everything passed they can. And, you know, they've got this kind of Hail Mary thing going on where they're trying to fix elections moving forward so that they never lose again. But will that work? I don't think that they're confident that it will work, right? And so that's why they're kind of panicking. That's why they're trying to push so much forward. I think that typically the Democrats, in a typical term, the Democrats would not be so obvious with their pushing this radical agenda. I think they'd be a little softer. They'd try to seem more bipartisan. They'd try to seem less radical, but they don't care right now because they know they've only got 4 years. And so if you're not sure that you have the ability to execute a long-term plan, what are you going to do? You're going to throw somebody in to try to manage the team. And I don't think the Democrats have like an ace coach to bring in to sort of manage everything, right? Biden obviously is not doing anything. Kamala Harris, again, she's just a diversity hire. She was just brought in because she's quasi-black. She pretends to be black. Barack Obama is somebody who was president and who can do the job, right? Maybe he's not the best at it, but he can do it. So I think that everybody involved, all the players involved, no matter how much power that they have to wield in Washington, D.C., said, okay, so for most stuff, we can bring in Barack Obama. He can manage most of the stuff that's going on, because most of the stuff that's going on, the various players involved, they don't care, right? Like if you're a special interest, right? All you really care about is the stuff that's relevant to you. All the other stuff can be whatever. You don't care what laws get passed for the other groups, the other kind of stuff that you're not involved in. So the FBI has specific things that they care about. Pelosi has specific things that she cares about. The teachers' unions have very specific things that they care about. Wall Street, very specific things they care about, right? George Soros, various specific things that he cares about. But the rest of the stuff he doesn't care about, so he can let the FBI maybe influence some things. He can maybe let the teachers' unions influence some things. He just wants to influence X, Y, and Z, and they can influence A, B, and C. He doesn't care. So that's why you got to bring in somebody else to sort of manage all the crap in between, sort of juggle everything and make sure that everything's working well. And Barack Obama was able to do that for 8 years for the Democrats. So I think that you kind of bringing him in as a sort of interim coach, right? You just bring him in. He's the guy we're going to bring in. He's going to deal with it for the short term that we have. If we're able to consolidate power and keep in office for longer, maybe then we'll work on who we're actually going to give this job to, who's actually going to run things behind the scenes. But for now, we'll just bring in Barack Obama. That makes a lot more sense to me as a sort of temporary guy. Now, what would Obama's motivation be, right? Because what's his incentive? Well, Mark Vines made another very good point. He said, look, Barack Obama is a much more radical guy than he pretended to be while he was in office. There was a lot more stuff that he wanted to do, but he couldn't do because the time that he was president, America wasn't ready for this radical stuff, these radical changes. Now, a lot of Democrats are pushing for that radical stuff, and Barack Obama can get a lot more of his agenda accomplished than he could the previous 8 years. So, Obama has a legacy issue now. Sure, he has a legacy, but it's, like I said, it wasn't really that effective. His presidency was not really that effective. Obamacare was more or less a failure. It was kind of a mediocre success. They hail it as a great success on the Democrat side, but nobody really thinks so. Everybody thinks it was kind of this messy, ineffective thing that, yeah, sure, it helped some people with their insurance, but then it screwed other people with their insurance. So it was just kind of like, it was like a wealth distribution thing that was uneven, ineffective, really didn't help out the people they wanted to help out. And yeah, the legacy is mottled at best. It's not a great legacy. He's not considered to be a great president. But if Barack Obama, through Joe Biden, can secure a legacy, can make some of the stuff happen that he wanted to happen during his presidency but couldn't, well, then maybe his presidency will look better, because a lot of the stuff maybe he wanted finally got through, and look, we now live in this amazing world where all of Obama's ideas were effective. And what are Obama's ideas? Well, Dinesh D'Souza has some things to say about that. If you've never seen his film, I think it's called 2012 Obama's America, Dinesh D'Souza proposes that Barack Obama has inherited from his father an anti-colonialist worldview. Anti-colonialist typically is reserved for the colonist nations of Europe, so like the Netherlands, Portugal, Spain, and the UK, in England. The United States of America was a colony, right? As a colony, we had a Revolutionary War, we became a country. But the concept of the colony, or the colonial state, has been applied to the United States recently pretty severely. A lot of people who are anti-colonial look at the United States as the same kind of imperial power that the UK used to be, and they blame the United States for colonialism the same way they used to blame, the UK or the Netherlands, places like that. A lot of times, analogies are made between colonial states and US occupations, military occupations of foreign nations. So in any case, whether it's rational or not, people apply the colonial label to the United States of America, which doesn't make a ton of sense, but that's how they describe us. And they use that to justify a hatred of the United States. And so Dinesh D'Souza's idea is that Barack Obama inherited a kind of hatred for imperial states and a hatred for America. And his vision is to redistribute America's wealth to the rest of the world, right? To devalue America and put it on a more even playing field with the rest of the world. Not America first, America last. Bring up the other countries in the world and bring down the United States. And if you could say that Obama was successful in one thing during his presidency, that was it. He definitely pushed a lot of wealth out of the United States to other countries, and he reduced the value of the United States. I mean, that's what Obama was doing, and it looks like they're going right back to that. And so Mark Vines got me thinking about all this stuff and realizing that, yeah, I mean, if you got a short amount of time to get a lot of stuff done, and you just need to bring somebody in to kind of manage it all, who are you going to bring in but the guy who was able to manage it all previously for you? There's another reason, I think, and I did talk to Mark Vines about this, and he agreed with me on this. There's another reason that it makes sense that all these different interest groups, interested parties, would give up power to Obama. And that reason is that Obama is kind of idolized by Democrats. You see, Republicans, we don't really see Obama as a great man, obviously. We see Obama as a kind of mediocre president at best. I mean, we think of him as a terrible president, but he wasn't particularly effective. And the truth is, we think of him as a diversity hire, much like Kamala Harris, right? We realized a lot of people voted for Barack Obama just because they wanted to vote for the great historic moment of the first black president, right? A lot of people voted for Barack Obama for that reason. So we recognize that Obama was more or less a diversity hire. And so we don't have a great deal of respect for Obama, but you got to put yourselves into the heads of Democrats. Democrats idolize this man. Democrats genuinely think that Obama was a great president. They think he was a great... Democrats look at Obama the way Republicans look at Ronald Reagan. It's insane. I know, it doesn't make any sense. It's kind of like hard to even contemplate that. But Barack Obama is the Democrats' Ronald Reagan. They look at him at that level. And so the idea of giving up power to somebody who would manage the entire deep state or manage the country from behind the scenes, of course they're going to give up power to Obama because they idolize him. They think of him as, you know, this amazing guy. They all kind of worship at the feet of Obama. A lot of the Democrats, you'd think, okay, well, maybe some Democrat voters do, but not Democrats in Washington. I actually think it's just the opposite. I think the Democrats in Washington worship Obama even more than your typical Democrat voter. There is a kind of cult of Obama. It's really weird. And so, yeah, if you take all the evidence of the fact that he never moved out of Washington, D.C., the fact that he said in an interview, I would love to have a third term if I could just run things behind the scenes, right? The fact that, you know, he never really completed his legacy. The fact that Democrats are scared that they've only got 4 years and that they got to throw somebody in there to manage the whole thing. Yeah, I think it totally makes sense that Barack Obama would be the man behind the curtain. And so I do think Barack Obama is running Washington, D.C., running the country behind the scenes. But there's another thing, another reason. If you think that, okay, your logic makes some sense, Chris, but it's a bit irrational, it's not 100%, it doesn't make 100% sense. This is the icing on the cake. This is the kicker, guys. This is the reason why I finally really, truly accepted that Barack Obama is working behind the scenes running the country. It's because Democrats are stupid. There's two kinds of Democrats in Washington, D.C., guys. There are Democrats who are really, really stupid, but think they're really smart. And then there are Democrats who are really, really stupid and know they're really, really stupid, right? And they're actually the smarter ones. The ones that know they're stupid are a little bit smarter than the ones who actually think they're smart. They're just embarrassing. You may remember this quote from actually the Hawaii representative in D.C., Mazie Hirono.
We Democrats know so much, that is true. And we have to kind of tell everybody how smart we are.
Yeah, so this is Mazie Hirono saying that the problem with Americans is they just don't realize how smart Democrats are. And that's what's happening in D.C. That's what happens with these Democrats in D.C. They're really dumb. Some of them think that they're smarter than they are, and then others kind of know they're stupid, and that's why they cheat, right? That's why they cheat. That's why they're corrupt. That's why they're criminals, is because let's say you have a really smart guy and he wants to get rich. What does he do? He says, okay, let me figure out how to do it within the law. Because, yeah, working within the law is a bit more difficult than working outside the law, but working within the law, you know, you can do it. You can achieve success working within the law if you're smart enough. But if you're not that smart, what do you say? You say, okay, I'm not smart enough to succeed working within the law, but if I just skirt around the law, I could probably succeed much faster, much easier, because fewer people are willing to do that, right? It's like Al Capone. I always say Al Capone was not Al Capone because he was the smartest mobster. He was Al Capone because he was the one who was willing to, like, stab the guy in the eye with an ice pick, right? Like, he was the guy who was willing to do the most gruesome stuff, the stuff that the other mobsters were like, ooh, that's even too cruel for me. If you're scared of this guy, he becomes the boss, right? And criminality kind of works like that. You don't have to be the smartest guy. You just have to be the one willing to do the stuff other people aren't, because that creates a sort of power vacuum, right? If nobody's willing to do this nasty thing and somebody comes in, they're willing to do it, they reap the reward of that. That's actually what George Soros did, right? George Soros is called the man who broke the Bank of England. And what he did, his little scheme to get rich initially, it wasn't something that other people probably hadn't thought of. I'm sure tons of people knew how to do the thing that he did to get rich, the scam that he pulled. But nobody else was willing to do it because nobody else was that cruel. Nobody else was that evil to be able to try to destroy an entire nation's economy just to get rich themselves. George Soros was willing to do that. That's why he became rich. In fact, almost all the money he makes is essentially scamming people, scamming governments, scamming major institutions. He just runs scams. That's his whole thing, because he's a criminal, because he's not smart enough to actually succeed based on his own merits. So he runs these scams, stuff that other people are unwilling to do because they think, well, that's unethical, I won't do it. So he steps in, he does it. This is what Nancy Pelosi does. This is what Biden did in Ukraine. This is what he did in China. Democrats are willing to do the criminal stuff that other people aren't willing to do. You know, some people might say, well, that's the smart way. That's the smarter people. No, it isn't. It's the less ethical people. Now, does that mean that every Democrat out there is an idiot? No. It just means that they're all willing to do sort of unethical things or work with unethical people or to work outside the law. And you're more likely going to find unintelligent people willing to break rules and skirt around things than intelligent people, because intelligent people can succeed without breaking rules. Nevertheless, you are going to get a few intelligent people in there, and those ones are going to be the kings, right? Those are going to be the leaders, the ruling class, I suppose, of the criminal organization that is the Democrat Party, that is the deep state. The smartest ones are probably going to rule their minions, who are the sort of dumb criminals. And so this leads me into my point about irrationality. Again, like I said before, you might think that giving up power to a guy who, you know, Barack Obama, why would you do that? Why would you give up power to Barack Obama? He doesn't naturally have power. He doesn't have any power given by the people. He doesn't have any leverage over anybody. There's no reason to give him power. He's just kind of this neutral guy that everybody's just willing to give power to. That seems totally irrational. Even if you're in the cult of Obama, even if you worship the guy, why would you do that? Why won't you just keep your own power and try to remain as powerful as you can and not give any of it up? That's the more rational thing to do. But like I said, Democrats are stupid. All right. And so this is why I believe it, because I remember that something that was said to me by a Democrat who has worked with a lot of prominent Democrats. This guy's worked with some of the most powerful Democrats in Washington, D.C. And he once said to me, Chris, none of the ideas that the Republicans have about Democrats is right. But it's not what you think. It's not because Democrats are not evil. Some of them are certainly evil. Some of them are selfish. Some of them have all the qualities you think they have. The reason you're wrong about the Democrats is because they're not smart enough to pull off the things you think they're pulling off, right? They're not that smart. They're all just a bunch of idiots running around selfishly trying to act in their own best interests, but they're not smart enough to pull off the schemes you think they're pulling off. And that's bothered me for a long time, because I thought, what if he's right? What if they're not that smart? But here's the thing. You can get some smart people to work on things for you if you're powerful enough, right? So you have all these idiots out there hiring people, bringing people in that are smarter than them to help work out their various machinations. But then they occasionally make mistakes, right? Look at what happened during the whole Russia scandal, right? They should never have gotten caught for that. The FBI should never have gotten caught for that. How dumb do you have to be to spy on a presidential candidate as the FBI, right? And then get caught for it and have the whole thing blow up in your face. I mean, you've got to be unbelievably stupid. The only reason all of those people aren't in jail right now, aren't in prison, is because they have enough powerful friends to keep them out of it, but they should be. They messed up big time. That whole scandal should never have been exposed. Their whole idea of, let's impeach Donald Trump for the Ukraine phone call, that was a Hail Mary. They knew that was total BS. They knew they had nothing there. They went for it anyway. Why? Because they couldn't think of anything better, because they're dumb, right? And so the reason I think they've been willing to bring in Barack Obama as their master that they bow to is just because they're irrational. They're stupid. They're just not that smart. And so at the end of the day, I really think that Barack Obama really is the guy that's running things behind the scenes. As unlikely as that seems to me, because he's just not good at it, and he's, there are much better people I imagine that could be doing it. But you've got all these reasons why I think it's him, plus the fact that Democrats are stupid. Now, one thing about this that I think is excellent, that gives me a lot of hope, is that I think that this is how we can beat them. I think the Democrats are so stupid, and I think the Democrats are so bad and bungle all of their schemes and their plots that I think eventually everything that they're doing will be unraveled. And I think this is why they're paranoid about losing power in 4 years, and why they're pushing everything, and why they're being so obvious, and why they're trying to push things like critical race theory in the military and push out Republicans, and why Nancy Pelosi is trying to cash in so obviously. I mean, all of their schemes are so obvious right now, and they're pissing off the American people, like even Democrats. So I think Democrats know their time is up. I think they're panicking. I think some of the older Democrats, some of the establishment people, they know that they're losing favor, that they can't keep the scams running, so they've got to just cash in while they can, and then they're going to run. And I think, like Nancy Pelosi, I think she's planning on quitting. She's planning on cashing in and then quitting. Biden is perfectly willing to be used as a puppet. He can cash in and run. I think a lot of these people are doing that. And the people that are going to be holding the bag are people like Kamala Harris. I think she's just a stooge that's being used, and she's going to be standing there looking like the dope. And the other criminals, they're going to run off and just like leave her standing there to get arrested. You know, I think there's going to be a reckoning. People like George Soros, they're going to die. And all the younger Democrats, the new Democrats coming up, they're going to have to completely remake their party, because the Democrat Party has been set up until this point essentially just to make certain people rich. And those people are trying to cash in now because they think they've only got 4 years to do it, and then they're done. And I think that gives me a lot of hope. So, you know, we've got to play our cards right. We still have to work really hard. We still have to make sure we do these audits, but there's no reason for us to panic as conservatives. There's no reason for us to think that they're going to be in power forever. I think all their attempts at like HR 1, their attempts to fix the voting so that they can keep winning, keep staying in power, I think these things are going to inevitably fail. I think in 2022, I don't think they're going to be able to cheat well enough to stay in power then. I think we're going to take the House, I think we're going to take the Senate, and in 2024, if we haven't already figured out how to get Biden out of there and Trump back in, I think Trump's going to be president once again. All right, well, that's it for me. Remember to check out my other channel, Mr. Pagan. I know I say that every episode, but there's some of you who are sitting there going, no, I'm not going to check out your stupid channel, Mr. Pagan. It's stupid. I don't like the jokes. Just go subscribe. Just be nice to me. I need the extra subscriptions to sort of, watch one of the videos. You might find it funny. Share it with your friends. Oh, and if you like Mr. Pagan, yeah, share all the videos with your friends if you can, because I am afraid that this channel is getting so suppressed that I need another outlet to express political ideas, and comedy is a great way to do it because it's harder to censor that stuff. So that's the way I'm going to try to change minds. I will see you guys probably tomorrow. Until then, remember, it's not that all liberal friends are ignorant, it's just they know so much that is not so. Good night.
This is the specter our well-meaning liberal friends refuse to face, that their policy of accommodation is appeasement. If we continue to accommodate, continue to back and retreat, therein lies the road to war. You and I know and do not believe that life is so dear and peace so sweet as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery.